Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Shield, and this is Lunch with Lisa. It is so nice to see you all. And today I want to talk about texting in the early stages of getting to know a guy. So here's the deal. This is fraught with all kinds of danger, and I really want to caution you against building a connection too quickly and thinking that just by texting with a guy that you know him. So when I first started dating online, texting didn't exist and Facebook didn't exist. So I didn't have to go through any of this. All we did was email back and forth, and it was a completely different world. We would email, we'd get on a phone call, and then we'd go on a date. And most people back then didn't want to sit, online and email back and forth for too long. It was a very different time with the advent of texting. We've added a whole set of new problems, and it's very, very, very important for you to be aware of some of the dangers that you can run into by texting too long with somebody you're just getting to know. I know some of you don't want to text for long. I know you don't want to do a lot of texting back and forth. And it's really up to the woman to get the guy from a text to a Zoom call or a phone call to a date. A lot of men have made the mistake of asking or suggesting too quickly that, hey, let's go on a date, or let's, move this thing forward. And then they've gotten their head chewed off by a woman who wanted to text and get to know the guy, or wanted to get on the phone or take it more slowly. And so a lot of men do sit back and wait for the woman to give them a sign that they are ready to take that next step. So don't be afraid of doing that. You can say to a guy, hey, I bet if you asked me to jump on a phone call or to hop on a Zoom call, I would say yes. Or I bet if you asked me on a date, I would say yes. So you want to put that out there. You want to take what I call the feminine lead and move that along. A man who really is interested in getting to know you is going to be happy that you did that, because he's looking for ways to please you. He wants to get in your good graces, and he's looking for cues and listening for cues from you as to how he can do that. So don't be fooled by all these coaches who tell you to lean back and let men chase you and let men do all the work. You don't want to do that. That often attracts avoidant men. It attracts players, because those are the guys who are really comfortable with chasing women. So you don't want to make it too easy or be too direct with a guy. You don't want to say, hey, let's go to lunch, or let's get on a Zoom call. You do it in a more feminine way. Men like to feel like it's their decision and their choice. So if you do it in a playful way, where you say something like, hey, I bet if you asked me to get on a Zoom call, I'd say yes. And that way he still has to ask you to jump on Zoom, but you're letting him know that you're going to make it easy for him and that you want to do that. So going back to texting, you want to be cautious. You want to be careful. I know a lot of you love those good morning and good night texts, and you really feed off of that instant gratification that you get when, you think a guy is thinking about you and he's texting you. Don't be fooled. Just because a guy is texting you doesn't mean that he's really interested in a relationship with you and getting to know you. Now, you may sit there and think, oh, but why would a guy do that? Why would he invest his time and energy, in sending me good morning, good night texts and, flirting with me throughout the day. Why would any guy do that if he isn't serious about me? Well, a lot of men know that women feed off of this stuff. They're not stupid. And, scammers are getting smarter by the minute, and they can figure out the things to do to get women to fall into their games, their ploys, their tricks. And so they know that one of the ways to really prime the pump and get the woman to fall for them is by giving her, feeding her these little sound bites that get her on the hook. So be very, very, very wary of a man, especially someone you've never met in person or had a Zoom call with. Be very wary of any guy who's doing this. What happens is women connect through communication. And it is very easy for men who are, they're not that comfortable connecting, communicating by nature. It's not what they do. And so, number one, it's very easy for them to do this all over text. And they know that they can build a false sense of security and a false connection with a woman by doing this, by sending her good morning and good night texts and, dropping her little messages throughout the day to let her know that he's thinking about her. A woman who is hungry for connection, for affection, and for attention is going to take that hook, line, and sinker. And what often happens is, if they're not scammers, or if they're looking for sex, then by the time you get on that first date, many women think, oh, well, we've known each other for 3 weeks or a month because we've been texting. Now, don't get me wrong. I know during the pandemic, it was a little bit different because we couldn't go out. We couldn't meet in person quickly, and we had to get to know someone. But even with that, I encouraged my clients, although they couldn't go on an actual date, I encouraged them to get on Zoom calls and to actually connect with a man over Zoom so that they didn't build up that false sense of security by texting. I also know that there's another risk, and I'm sure many of you have fallen into this trap, where you have been texting or even Zooming with somebody, and then you meet in person and there's just no connection. It's not the same seeing somebody from the waist up as it is to see a whole person, the way they walk, the way he walks, the way he carries himself. There's just a whole different level of connection that happens when you meet in person. And sometimes somebody is much shorter than you expected. Maybe he's not as put together. Maybe he's more comfortable on Zoom or over text, and he's awkward. The conversation doesn't flow in the same way. The other thing about text that you really want to be careful of is that people have time to formulate their responses. They can think about what they're going to say. They can make sure that they choose their words carefully. It's not the same, again, on Zoom or in person. It's very, very different because you don't have the time to sit and formulate a response. And so it might not be, somebody may not be as natural or as funny as they are over text. And I'm sure all of you have experienced that, where you call a girlfriend, what do I say to this? Help me craft the perfect response. And so you call on your girls or your friends or whatever, and you have that opportunity to make sure that you have the perfect comeback, or you can wait a little bit, and think about how you want to respond to something. So you want to be very, very, very careful of building a connection over text and then thinking that that means anything more than what it is. It's texting. It's the lowest form of communication. So when it comes to an actual communication, like a full-fledged message communication, right, between two people, there are several different parts to that communication. Number one, there are the words that you're saying, which is all you really get over text unless you have an emoji or whatever. But there's the actual words you're saying, which is the smallest part of the entire message. Then there is the tone and speed of your voice, and there's body language, which you do not get over text. So I could say to you, it's a beautiful day. Or I could say, it's a beautiful day. Two completely different messages. One sounds depressed, like I'm not, a happy person. And the other one sounds like a person who's engaged in life and who's, the first one is almost regretful. It's a beautiful day. Like, oh my God, I wish I could go out. I wish I had something to do. I wish I had someone to do it with. And then you have a completely different message. It's a beautiful day, right? Oh my God, like this day is full of possibility and, I can't wait to meet the day. So one sounds regretful and sad and depressed, and the other sounds upbeat and positive and optimistic and hopeful, full of possibility. So you do not get a full communication. You don't really get a full sense of a person over text. The other thing that I think is really sad about texting is that it really does trigger this sort of Pavlov's dog syndrome, this Pavlov's dog response. And if you think about it, going back to Pavlov's dog, I think if I remember correctly, there was, a dog, and when there would be a sound or something, the dog would get food and it would start salivating, and then every time it heard the sound, it would start to salivate whether or not it got the food or the reward. But it conditioned the dog to have a specific response, and then the dog, every time it would hear the noise, it would have that response whether or not it got the reward. And that's what happens with texting. You become like Pavlov's dog. You're waiting for those responses. You get anxious and excited and, all stirred up, and you're waiting and waiting to get that response, and you're feeding off of those little, that guy who's hitting that button and triggering that response and that reward response in your brain. And again, going back to scammers, they know this. They prey on, women who are, who are hungry for love and attention and affection, and they know exactly what to do and how to do it. In fact, we had a woman who had a scammer in our program, and what happened was he, had a really cute name that was perfect. He had these adorable pictures, and he sent her roses and a teddy bear and, all of these things that he knew were going to prime the pump, that were going to get her excited and reel her in. And of course, then he said he, was on business and they got mugged and they're, robbed. He was, on this, I don't know, he was abroad and he was doing this big deal, and then they got robbed. I mean, if he got robbed, his company would have sent him money and new credit cards. He didn't need her to send him money. He could have called the credit card company and canceled the card and gotten new cards. But she was so reeled in by this guy that she fell for it. And it just, and it all happened over text. It all happened over text. And here's a successful, beautiful, mature woman who fell for this thing, and it didn't take a whole lot more than some well-placed texts and a teddy bear and some roses to make her think that this was her guy and that, she was falling in love with him and whatever. So you really, really have to be careful. I can't stress this enough to all of you. If a man is texting you and you do not know him, you've never met, and he's sending you good morning and good night texts and thinking about you throughout the day, and you don't know him, do not read into this. Do not make it mean anything more than, hey, I don't know what this guy's up to. It's nice that he's doing this. I mean, to me, I would feel uncomfortable. I would feel very, very uncomfortable if a man I didn't know was sending me texts. There's something in my course that I call assumed familiarity, and it's where somebody assumes that they have a level of closeness with you that has not yet been established, but they're assuming that we've texted, we've communicated, I have your phone number, you have mine, and so they assume a level of familiarity that has not yet been established, and so they're sending messages, and to me, that would feel like an intrusion. That would really feel intrusive if a man was reaching out to me and connecting with me and I had never met him and he felt like he had was familiar enough with me to start sending me texts morning and night or just dropping me messages. I mean, I actually find texting intrusive. It's convenient if I don't want to talk to somebody or I don't have time to actually have a conversation or write an email. It's a very direct and easy way to send a message. But I have very, very, very few friends and people that I sit and text with and just have conversations over text. I think it's crazy. If I'm going to have a conversation and it's going to go more than a few texts, I'd rather just pick up the phone and call that person. It seems ridiculous to sit there and text back and forth, and especially if I'm trying to get something done. I don't have time to sit there, and text. I find it really annoying. I'm sitting and I'm waiting for their response, but I'm doing something else. I don't know. I find the whole thing very intrusive. But I think it, again, hits that instant gratification, Pavlov's dog reward response inside of us, and especially for anxious daters, it's just tailor-made for that, because it really, and I talk to intelligent women who are CEOs of companies who want guys to be messaging them and contacting them. Maybe they have one or two dates and already the woman is assuming that the guy is, well, I would like a lot more communication in between dates and whatever. You've gone on 2 freaking dates. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. There should be enough, a woman should have enough confidence and enough of a sense of self to know that if something is going to go somewhere and a man really likes her and he wants to pursue her, he's going to pursue her and not need somebody who she's just met to keep feeding her, feeding into her little insecure, touching her insecurity button with messages and texts and phone calls after only a couple of dates. I remember when Benjamin and I met, we did our first date. We had our first date, which was lovely. I mean, really, really lovely. And then I went off to Vietnam for 3.5 weeks, and I never heard from him, not once, and the whole time I was gone. And, we'd only been on one date, so I thought, hey, it was one date. And I think once while I was away, I thought to myself, I wonder if that guy is going to contact me again. And then the day I got back, he reached out to me and invited me to an event. And I later found out that he had gone home the night of our first date and taken his profile down. And he had marked on his calendar that the day I was coming back. And, but I never heard from him in those 3.5 weeks. And I only thought about him once. And in the very beginning of our dating, we never sat on the phone and talked for hours and hours and hours. I mean, we do now. We can't get enough of each other, even after 20 years. But I had gotten to the point in myself that I was so secure. I was so grounded and secure. And Benjamin was so grounded and secure that, it just progressed at a very normal, natural pace. And I also realized that I wasn't looking for a man to make me feel secure. I felt secure. I didn't need that constant reward and that constant feedback to make me feel safe enough to pursue the relationship. I felt that within myself, and I trusted that, if Benjamin was gonna pursue me, he was gonna pursue me. And if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. But I stopped wanting to control anything. I stopped trying to control things. I surrendered and I just let it unfold. And this is what I think is missing in dating, and where things like texting and Facebook just, are so dangerous, because they feed that need for instant gratification. They feed the neediness inside of us to constantly get rewarded and to keep getting feedback from somebody because we're too insecure to trust the process. Look, if a guy is going to want to spend his life with you, you have to trust that he's going to keep showing up over and over again, and that you're what he wants, and that you have what it takes for him to want to do that with you. But you can't control it. You can't, say, hey, I would love it. I mean, you can say to a guy, I love it when you reach out to me. It really brightens my day when I get a text from you. But you really also have to look inside yourself and ask yourself what that's about. Are you just trying to get a guy to feed your need to feel secure in a relationship and to keep giving you feedback that, yes, I'm interested, yes, I'm thinking about you, because you're insecure? I think it's something that people really, that women should be looking at, because the bottom line is, you don't want to take that kind of insecurity into your relationship. You don't want to go into a relationship needing to, get a guy to keep reassuring you and making you feel safe. If you feel insecure because you're not getting enough texts or response from a guy, either it means that he may not be the right guy for you, or it may mean that you are needy and you're trying to get reassurance from a man so that you can feel safe in a relationship. So there's a few important things, again, to look at here. Number one is scammers know. Scammers know how to prime the pump. They're savvy. They know women feed off of this stuff, and they use texting, good morning texts, good night texts. They use this to reel you in, to make you feel a false sense of security and safety, and to feel like they really care about you and are interested in you. And that's really how they are able to scam a lot of women. So be careful with that. Get them on a call, a Zoom call, a phone call as soon as possible, and really preferably Zoom or FaceTime. A phone call isn't even enough these days. If a guy isn't willing to get on Zoom or FaceTime, within 3 to 7 days of texting with you, he's not your guy. Because a guy that really cares about you, he's looking for ways to please you. And you want a man who's really going to jump through hoops to make you happy. And then the second thing is, be careful, because again, we get lured into thinking that this is more than it is. Many guys who want to sleep with you know that a woman will sleep with a guy on the first date if he's been texting her and communicating with her for a certain amount of time. A woman will assume, oh, but we've known each other for 3 weeks or a month, and this really isn't just a first date. Don't make that mistake. A first date is a first date. And also look at your neediness. Look at when you start to feel insecure and you start waiting for that reassurance, that those little, you start to become like Pavlov's dog, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then, oh, ding, you get that message from the guy, and you're bumming out, you feel awful, and then you get that message and you feel good because you're getting those little tiny reassurances, but that's really just your neediness, and you don't want to carry that into a relationship. You do not want to be that insecure woman who's constantly trying to get her guy to reassure her. So really use this as an opportunity to start to look at that neediness inside of you, and to look at how it comes up, especially in the early stages of dating somebody, and how you need that constant feedback to feel safe with a guy. And much of the time, it's not even real. It's just a guy feeding you like Pavlov's dog, so that you have that reward response, thing. Be very, very, very careful of that. And understand a first date is nothing more than a first date. All of the texting that comes before, my best advice is within 3 to 7 days, get on a Zoom call or a FaceTime call. And if a guy won't do that, move on. He's not your guy. And once you get on that Zoom call, try to set up a date right away if you can. Do not keep Zooming. Don't keep, using electronic media to create that foundation. Get out there and get on a physical date. And do not sleep with someone right away. Have good, clear boundaries around sex. You do not want to become lovers before you're friends. I can tell you, a lot of guys bolt right away because they know that the minute they sleep with a woman, she's going to want a commitment. She's looking for a relationship. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't let a guy lead you on over text, get you into bed, and then turn around and ghost you. This is brutal on our self-esteem. And it keeps creating this shame cycle that just keeps going round and round and round and round. So have clear boundaries and stick to them, okay? This has been Lunch with Lisa. It's been lovely to see you. I do these podcasts twice a week. I have Lunch with Lisa, and then I have Getting Inside the Right Male Mind with my husband, me and my husband, Benjamin Shield. He is brilliant. I think he has the most beautiful mind, and we are getting phenomenal responses on that part of the podcast. So please tell your friends, tell everyone you know to listen. We're saying things that other love coaches are not saying. I think if you listen to our relationship, we have a very, very unique relationship. This is what we call a guardian of your soul relationship. And we've been together for 20 years, and we have hundreds and hundreds of clients who have worked with us and found relationships like ours. If you want to know more about my work, you can go to my website, lisashield.com, and you can click on the button to watch my free 45-minute presentation. If you stay to the end of that presentation, you can book a call with me or a member of my team, and we will talk to you about how in 12 weeks we can help you find the guardian of your soul. You don't have to keep spinning your wheels out in the dating world, wasting time trying to figure this out on your own. You can work with a true expert who can take you by the hand and lead you there, so you can cross Meet My Soulmate off your to-do list forever. Imagine what that would feel like. So go to lisashield.com, watch my free presentation, and please rate and like my podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and also like my YouTube channel. If you have any suggestions for future topics for this Lunch with Lisa or for Getting Inside the Right Male Mind, you can email me, and that would be podcast@lisashield.com. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.